What does this case remind me of? Performance 1 FT platform, Flux series design, and something similar to that. And when you incorporate two of the most likely best series from ANTEC, you get one of their, well, definitely their best case. And with everything here that we have, radiator support, fan support, two-less removable panels, ease of access to the power supply shroud, loads of stuff, you get a case that really has to perform. It just has to perform. So let's go with some features. The case comes with 6 fans, one Tranquil 140 PWM fan at the back, non-RGB, 3 of those at the front, non-RGB, and 2 P12 reverse on the power supply shroud. Now, because of its design and how the panels are assembled, we have perforated steel, fine mesh, I would say, and the location of everything is just perfect. So we have perforated steel on the sides, both sides actually, on the back side panel and beneath the tempered glass. We have it on front. We have bottom dust filter going throughout the whole bottom chassis. We have the top panel, which is also easily removable on pegs. The front one is magnet slash hooks, and we have hooks here on the side, which is quite easy to remove, where you have the access to the digital screen. And the backside panel pegs, tempered glass pegs, just ease of access. This is what I'm talking about. This is the case that really brings the, let's say, user-friendly access to building experience. And that's not all, because even though you have to use in some parts the screwdriver, it's not something that you actually need, because in front you have 3 140 Tranquil, so you don't have to remove that if you're not going with the 420. Oh wait, you can place a 420 at the top, so you don't still have to remove the front. But if you actually do want to remove it, you have to remove 4 screws. So this is one segment that I mentioned that it's like that. And then we go with the power supply shroud. Now, the power supply shroud, you see, you can notice here I have 3 fans now. But the original stock version comes with 2 fans that are dedicated to create additional intake for the GPU and eventually create an intake for the side, because not everything goes directly to the GPU. Regardless of that, you can remove those fans if you don't want to. You can place 3 covers and place hard drives on it. That's something additional that you haven't had before. So you can reorganize the storage and all the other stuff. But if you actually really want to place 3 fans, you can do that as well. Ease of access when we're talking about that panel is removing 2 screws and just sliding it out. The side panel, just pop it upwards. That's it. That's all there is to it. Now, since I'm talking about the fans, I do have to mention the maximum fan support. On front, you can go up to 3140. On top, you can go up to 3140. On the power supply shroud, you can go up to 3120. At the bottom, beneath the power supply shroud, you can go with 2120 or 2140. The rear, maximum up to 140. So this is insane. You can actually remove the hard drive cage at the bottom of the power supply shroud, have 2 there, 3 on top of the power supply shroud, 3 on front, 3 on top, and 1 at the rear. That sums up to 12 fans altogether. But we can't stop there, because this case actually gives you more. So if you go and take this into consideration, radiator support, front 420, top 420, power supply shroud 360, bottom part of the power supply shroud 240, and rear 140. So if that's not enough cooling for you, I don't know what is. But let me continue on that segment. So on top you have 2 screws, you remove the top panel and you can get ease of access in terms of installing the radiator, fans, or both. So that's really cool and kind of gives you nice advantage to that. The bottom part, now this is interesting. So if you remove it, you can install 3 120 fans or a 360 push-pull combination on it, depending on the thickness of the GPU, of course, depending on the thickness of the radiator. But it fits, and there's a possibility for that, because you have loads of space at the back side near the motherboard, so you have possibility to connect everything prior of placing that. Now, the front bracket is removable, as I mentioned, but there's also one more cool thing that it has. It has 5 positions to fit a huge top radiator, or an AIO in general. So if you go with the 3rd position, you have a 360mm radiator, thickness 27mm, and with the fans 25mm. The 4th position goes with the 420 radiator of 27 plus 25 millimeters of fan thickness. Then we can go with fifth position. You can go with 420 thick radiator up to 45 millimeters, the regular fan 25 millimeters. And the last one, the fifth position, gives you an option to go with 420, 45 millimeters of thickness of the radiator, and 30 millimeters of thickness of the fan. This is insane because what it happens here, you can actually regulate the front panel just to give you more access towards the top mounting of the AIO. Now in fifth position, there's also one possibility, 420 millimeter radiator with fans up to 70 millimeters, and the front can go up to 360 push-pull with maximum thickness of 60 millimeters plus 30 millimeters. So the fans would be placed on the front ones that create push combination. In the fifth position, there's also a second possibility where you go with top 420 maximum thickness of 70 millimeters, front 360 with maximum thickness of 75 millimeters, and then you go with the power supply shroud that goes up to push-pull with 100 millimeters. So you can go with one 420 and two 360, where one of those is a push-pull combination. Now, before I go into more interesting part, I do have to mention the modular hard drive cage possibilities and what you could do with it. So in stock combination, what you get is two hard drive caddies on the side and one hard drive cage here at the bottom, which can accommodate two 3.5-inch hard drives. That goes up to four 3.5-inch hard drives. But that's not all, because behind the motherboard you can place two 2.5-inch SSDs, and in all of those combinations you can go with one 2.5-inch SSD. So that sums up, if you want to go with 2.5-inch SSDs, you can go with 6 of those. And the cool thing is that if you go and use the mounting mechanism that's on the power supply shroud, you can place the same hard drive, 3 on front, 2 on top, 1 at the rear side, 2 on the top power supply shroud compartment, and 2 in the power supply shroud compartment. So this gives you an option to basically, I don't know, do with this case whatever you want. I/O panel, as per usual for ANTEC cases, comes with the dust plugs, which is kind of cool. And we have power on button, reset button, headphone, microphone combo jack. We have two USB 3.0. We have Type-C 10 gigabit per second and temperature display switch. Now this temperature display switch, and I'll just go quickly with that, has the option to switch between the CPU, GPU, or both. So you have 3 options basically, because if you don't want to see the GPU temperature, you can just go with the CPU, you can just go with the GPU, or both altogether. To be honest, I would play CPU and GPU constantly, and that's it. That's quite fine. So what you need to do is you need to install a software, which is quite straightforward, doesn't create any additional problems inside your PC. It reads up the information from your BIOS, and that's basically it. So iUnity from ANTEC, you install it and it immediately detects this, because the digital screen needs to be connected via USB 2.0 directly to your motherboard. That's the whole philosophy. There's nothing extra to it, and that's it. Now for the interior components, it supports eATX motherboards up to 285 millimeters, ATX, micro ATX, and ITX. Okay, that's standard. CPU cooler height maximum is 190 millimeters, GPU maximum length is 455, and power supply maximum length with included cables is 300 millimeters with the hard drive cage. Without the hard drive cage is 470 millimeters, and the side mount is maximum 180 millimeters. Basically, if I want to give you, if you're going with ANTEC in general, you just go with HCG Pro Platinum, and it fits perfectly, because I used it right here and everything was just top notch. So rerouting the cables, because of the I-shift possibility, and this is quite cool, and I'm just going to show you, this is how you remove the side panel, but you already saw that in the B-roll. This is it. This is it. And they just didn't slap the power supply on the side panel just like this. They actually did it on purpose. The reason for it is because you get clean access here for the airflow. And that's not all, because you can reroute the cables much nicer, because the cables are running right at the back, and then you can just reroute all the cables on the side. I mean, this case is most likely from the, I don't know for how long, the most nice cable management that I did in maybe this year. Let's put it this way. Yeah, top 3. Okay. So the reason for that is the position of the power supply, because rerouting the cables, it's much easier. You have loads of possibilities. Okay, I did place loads of cables in the hard drive cage at the bottom, but that doesn't matter because I have two additional hard drive cages. And if I don't want to use the hard drive cage here for the cables just to group them up, just use a zip die and place them somewhere in there. But what I wanted to say about the cable management, if you have a good cable management for the bottom part of the power supply shroud, you get more air intake from these originally 2 or my version 3 fans that will create additional and nice airflow without a doubt. So they really thought this one through, right? Except for the cable management and more intake for the fans and for the components in general inside, they did something, well, basically they thought the I shift quite true, right? So here we have the standard backplate that you usually have for placing the power supply outside of the chassis and pulling it from the side here. Well, this scenario is a bit different because here you have the plug which you can swap around. So if you need to rotate it for better cable organization of the power supply, you can do that. But here's another interesting fact. Depending on the socket for the power supply to actually connect the cable, you can reroute the power supply shroud, the extension cable, either to the left or to the right. And you can reroute the cable quite nicely because they actually thought of that. And that's really good. This is why I'm saying a good idea needs to be thought through carefully. So it's not just slapping a power supply somewhere here in the power supply shroud and just, oh yeah, it's an innovation. No, actually, this is quite cool because it gives you an option to flip everything around, and that's great. Since I was talking about cables, the backside for the cable management gives you loads of options. So the 2 EPS cables are running on the side with 3 Velcro ties. Unfortunately, I couldn't untie the second one, so it had to be like that. Now, where the 24-pin cable goes, you have 2 connected cable canals. One could be for 24-pin, and the other one can be for everything else, so to say. So this gives you an option to reroute the cables with 2 Velcro ties that are actually much stronger than your regular Velcro ties. So you can really tie up those cables so they don't mess up the possibility of placing the back panel because it's only on pegs. So it kind of forces you a bit to tie up those cables properly, giving you a nice closure at the back, placing the back panel. One of the things that makes this case outstanding is the non-RGB fans because it blends in so nicely. Don't mind me placing these 3 here. I wanted to place them here because they are new on the market and they actually kind of make the performance of this case quite outstanding. So we have something else. The front panel is just wow. As I stated, in general, this does remind me a bit of the Performance 1 FT, but it also reminds me of those Flux series, that DF 800, 700 Flux that we have like 2-3 years back, and they kind of refined the front panel, making it quite nice. So they added a touch of wood, and the front panel is crafted with combination of metal mesh, so fine mesh, and wood. In this scenario, we have walnut because it really does create that something specific. As I stated at Computex, we were having loads of wood and AI going throughout the whole Computex, and this case was one of those that actually had wood accent on the front. But it fits so nicely, it's unbelievable. And honestly, I thought I was going to talk much longer when we're talking about the features and everything all together, because this case really gives you options. And not just by placing the components inside and all the other stuff, but gives you an option to, for instance, these reverse fans to pull much more air inside the chassis because of the power supply being oriented like this, because of the better cable management that you could do. Not everybody's running extensions, let's be honest. So if you're going with a straight power supply to the components cables, you literally won't have any cables to rearrange at the back, except for maybe excessive cables from the PWM and addressable RGB. But there's one more solution here that this case has, and that's of course a PWM and addressable RGB hub. So this control hub is in synchronization with the motherboard, because from it you get a PWM header, you get adjustable RGB header, and you need to connect it with SATA power just to power up everything, right? But it comes with 5 PWM and 5 addressable RGB headers that you have the possibility to connect. Unfortunately, when you think about it, it's 5 PWM and you get 6 fans. So you're kind of lacking one. But honestly, the front tree and the power supply shroud, two ones, are connected. But this one at the rear isn't. Why? Because even though the cable is fairly long, and that means for these two, uh, it's not connected because you can connect it anywhere here on the motherboard, and you don't need to stretch the cable far to the left, and these ones are already pre-connected. The cable management, and this is quite important also, when you take into consideration the cases that are reviewed, well, for the past month, you notice that I complained a couple of times that cases came with a horrible cable management. It was maybe ANTEC, it was maybe some other brands, which is totally irrelevant, but I'm mentioning ANTEC because they did it as well. So I'm not picking on anybody. I'm talking about everybody that did it. This case literally has an outstanding cable management right from the box. And now we need to go to benchmarks. So I did the 64 Extreme Edition with AMD Ryzen 9 7900X3D. We have RTX 4080 Super Gaming X3. You already know that. Standard component configuration, nothing has changed much, but yeah. CPU 68 degrees Celsius. Clock speed 4875 megahertz, and GPU up to 66. So the GPU is quite solid, I do have to say. 66 degrees is quite solid. CPU 68, I think that's getting funnier and funnier because you know how this CPU works in general. So yeah, that's outstanding. But then I go to Cinebench R23 and I'm really surprised. I didn't expect this. So it starts at 80 degrees, eventually builds up to 82. Clock speed is constant 5000. Now, what I noticed in Cinebench R23 regarding these benchmarks, usually what I get is I need to take an average of the thermals and the clock speed. And when you take into consideration this scenario right here, where the thermals were constantly stable during each run, the clock speed was constantly stable, eventually moving by 25 megahertz. This was outstandingly balanced build. And then you see that in the Cinebench score. Now, this is the first time I ever received this type of score. So 27,052, 27,086, 27,123, and then it just dropped once, twice, three times beneath 27,000. So that means with maximum of 27,123 and having 7 runs out of the 10 that I usually do above 27,000. This is the only combination out of all my channel, all my reviews that managed to do that. Well, basically just with the 7900 X3D, to be honest, right? Because everything else was either touching or past 27,000 by two maybe benchmarks, right? So we know how the performance is with the Vortex, 26,600. The 400 Cinebench points comes from the chassis. And this is why I won't give it a performance badge. I can't give it a Best Buy badge without a doubt because we're not talking about a case that is nicely priced with loads of fans, loads of possibilities and stuff like that, right? uh, I won't give it an approved badge because why would I approve it? It's already approved by so many, so I'm not any different. And then we go with what else, what other badges? Creative. It's nothing creative here. They just did an outstanding work, thought through combination of literally everything they did in the past. As I stated, performance plus flux. You get this, a Flux Pro case, which deserves a PC Crazy Hall of Fame badge. And as you know, I don't give that badge out quite easily. That badge is actually dedicated for a couple of products per year that are really top of the line. And I'm not saying top of the line in terms of quality, or I'm saying this in general about everything. We have performance, we have design, we have thought out panels, we have such an outstanding configuration here, such an outstanding case, visual aspect. There is no flaws in the manufacturing process or delivering process because this case has to be delivered to my door. No problems whatsoever. I mean, in general, I don't have problems with delivery, so let's be honest. And altogether, definitely PC Crazy Hall of Fame badge. This one is the pinnacle of Antec's manufacturing in general and design and everything, and I'm really digging this case. Airflow is outstanding. We have, I mean, the fans, the new Tranquil fans are just brilliant, and there's nothing left to say, guys. If you're really digging the ANTEC FLUX PRO, or if you're looking something different from the fish tanks, I mean, I'm not saying anything against them, but I noticed the comments on all the social media, all of the social platforms that my profiles are, and I see that not everybody, okay, some of you guys are digging the fish tanks, but you still go with this type of case or anything. This is something different compared to fish tanks, but still old school, right? So, guys, ANTEC FLUX PRO paired up with ACG Pro 1000 Platinum, Vortex 360, and of course the P12R. I don't have to mention the Tranquil ones, but altogether create an outstanding build. So if you want to copy this build, this chassis, everything all together, I'll put the links in the description below so you can check out the prices, and you can check out some more details if I might have missed something. But altogether, I'm really, really satisfied with this case. Guys, that's it. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, click the notification bell. See you very soon, guys. Bye-bye.